Harold Hillman is our executive coach. You ever thought of going into politics yourself, Harold?
I have not, Roman.
Oh, why?
I just don't. I'm too old now.
But you have such presence, and doesn't being a great leader command you to have presence?
Presence is important. I appreciate you saying that. Presence is important. When you think about leadership, it really is the art of getting things done through people. So it's about the ability to be able to influence the way people think, the way they feel, and the way they perform. And it really does. In business, politics, sports, or any other field, the ability of a leader to articulate, engage, motivate, and lead can be the difference between success and failure, winning or losing, or governing or not. And so it really is important. There used to be this notion that you were either born with presence or not. So that there were some people who were perhaps just fortunate. They had all of the ingredients that merged well together to create this compelling persona. But now we know that you can actually develop presence. It's not one of those things that's genetically wired, but that you often have to work at. And so it is an important part of being able to influence people. There are certain qualities. There's a poise and a civility. We talked last week about Donald Trump and how he is the antithesis of civility and poise, and so that your energy has to be compelling as opposed to repelling to people.
Why is that? So I'm just thinking to myself, we are pretty shallow. We like what we see, or we don't like what we see. Why is having presence as a leader important at all?
It's about connection. Ultimately, you can't consider yourself a successful leader if you aren't able to influence people to follow you. And so it ultimately is about connection. With leadership comes rank, and sometimes with rank, people feel compelled to comply with you because you're not asking them to do anything illegal or unethical. So they just sort of say, yes, I'll go along with that. But there's a deeper sense of connection that you want with people, and that's called commitment. And that correlates with this thing called presence. It's not about the rank that you wear on your shoulder. It's about the essence of the connection that you can make with someone, whether they be very senior in rank or, for that matter, the youngest person in the organization. They're just compelled to sort of gravitate towards you.
Are you born with a natural leadership style that you can just enhance, or do you have to learn this? Is it like Winston Peters having to wear more pinstripes on his pinstripe suits?
I sat behind Winston Peters on the plane on Friday traveling to Christchurch. I saw him come onto the plane. I've seen him several times. I've never met him. He really does have poise. There is a politics aside. John Key is another person who I've seen present in a couple of forums. Jacinda Ardern, for that matter. You rarely make it to that level of leadership and rank and gravitas without a certain degree of presence, which is, there's a lot of it is just people experiencing you as an authentic person.
Here's something that's going to go completely against Winston Peters, but often leaders are tall people, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Why is that?
There is a correlation between height and weight and success, but height in particular, which means and I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe we're just wired to see people who are bigger in persona. But there is something. It doesn't mean that a person who perhaps is not below average in height, they can bring great through their confidence, through their authenticity. It connects. Sometimes if we are big in stature, we have to make ourselves a bit smaller to enhance connection. Sometimes when we're smaller in stature, we have to sort of bring it with more mana or gravitas to enhance connection. So size does correlate. You're absolutely right, but it's not a limiting factor if you're not tall.
I was just trying to think of an example of someone who's unnaturally tall. Kieran Reid, for example, big giant of a man, but talks very calmly and gently, unless you're being tackled by him, of course.
Well, that's part of self-awareness. Self-awareness is a component of presence, and that is sometimes you do have to make your persona a bit smaller to make room for other people to have a voice and perspective. And sometimes you may be too insular and internal, and you have to bring it forward a little bit more. So there is a self-awareness component. You want to enhance connection, not by overpowering or overwhelming people, but by giving them the space to actually be present.
So if you're a leader now, you might lead a small team in a foursquare, or you might be leading a great big corporation. How do you build a stronger presence?
Well, a big part of presence is being present. So there's that notion of be where your feet are is an expression that I've learned here in New Zealand. And that is when you're with another person, be there with them. Actually be present. It's a big part of mindfulness. Sometimes people have so much clutter in their heads that they can be sitting in a room with another person or a team of people and there's no connection because they're not fully there.
Yeah.
So a big part of it is presence. It is about authenticity. It is about communicating with intent. There is just be purposeful in how you make meaning with people. But at a very personal level, just being able to walk into a room and ask a person how they are and to really mean it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we say, how's it going? And blah, 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 when a person stops to actually tell us how it's going,
we don't want to know.
We don't want to know.
Oh, my God. Shut up. I don't really want to know.
That's right. So be present
is
a big part of it.
Now, there will be people listening now, Harold, who would love to use you to develop their skills in business and being leaders. How do they do that? How do they get in touch with you?
I'm at www.sigmoidcurve.com, Roman.
And how much time would you have to spend with me to make me a great leader? No, seriously.
Roman, you've got all the raw ingredients, which is why you're sitting here right now hosting this radio show.
Oh, you're very kind. Harold Hillman from the Sigmoid Curve Group, thank you so much for being here. You spilt your water again. Oh, no.
Again.
Oh, back again next week with Harold Hillman. Thank you. We'll get a cleaner. We'll get a little lady from the village to come in. It's easy.